Once upon a time, there lived a poor widow who had only one son named Jack. She was very poor, for times had been hard, and Jack was too young to work. Almost all of the furniture of the little cottage had been sold to buy bread, until at last there was nothing left worth selling. Only the good cow, Milky White, remained, and she gave milk every morning, which they took to the market and sold. But one day, Milky White gave no milk, and things looked bad indeed. "Never mind, Mother," said Jack. "We must sell Milky White. Trust me to make a good bargain." And away he went to the market. For some time, he went along very sadly, but after a little while, he recovered his spirits. "I may as well ride as walk," he said. So instead of leading the cow by an halter, he jumped on her back, and he went on whistling along until he met a butcher. "Good morning," said the butcher. "Good morning, sir," answered Jack. "Where are you going?" said the butcher. "I'm going to the market to sell the cow." "It's lucky," said the butcher. "You may save yourself the trouble of going so far." With this, he put his hand in his pocket and pulled out 5 curious-looking beans. "What do you call these?" he said. "Beans," said Jack. "Yes," he said, "beans, but they are the most wonderful beans that were ever known. If you plant them overnight, by the next morning they'll grow up and reach the sky. But to save you the trouble of going all the way to the market, I don't mind exchanging them for that cow of yours." "Done," said Jack, who was so delighted with the bargain that he ran all the way home to tell his mother how lucky he had been. But oh, how disappointed the poor widow was. "Off to bed with you," she cried. And she was so angry that she threw the beans out of the window into the garden. So poor Jack went to bed without any supper and cried himself to sleep. When he woke up the next morning, the room was almost dark, and Jack jumped out of bed and ran to the window to see what was the matter. The sun was shining brightly outside, but from the ground, upright beside his window, was a growing beanstalk, which stretched up as far as he could see into the sky. "I'll just see where it leads to," thought Jack. And with that, he stepped out of the window and onto the beanstalk, and began to climb upwards. He climbed up and up, till, after a time, his mother's cottage looked like a mere speck below. But at last, the stalk ended, and he found himself in a new and beautiful country. A little way off, there was a great castle with a broad road leading straight up to the front gate. But what was more surprising to Jack was that he found a beautiful maiden suddenly standing beside him. "Good morning, ma'am," he said very politely. "Good morning, Jack," said she, and Jack was more surprised than ever, for he could not imagine how she had learned his name. But he soon found that she knew a great deal more about him than just his name, for she told him now, when he was quite a little baby, his father, a gallant knight, had been slain by the giant who lived in yonder castle, and how his mother, in order to save Jack, had been obliged to promise to never tell the secret. All that giant has is yours, she said, and then disappeared. Why, as she saw late as she came. She must be a fairy, thought Jack. As he drew near to the castle, he saw the giant's wife standing at the door. "If you please, ma'am," said he, "would you kindly give me some breakfast? I have had nothing to eat." Now, the giant's wife, although very big and very ugly, had a kind heart. So she said, "Very well, little man, come in, but you must be quick about it, for my husband, the giant, if he finds you here, he will eat you up, bones and all." So in Jack went, and the giant's wife gave him a good breakfast, but before he had finished half of it, a terrible knock came at the front door, which seemed to shake even the thick walls of the castle. "Dearie me, that is my husband," said the giantess, in a terrible fright. "We must hide you somehow," as he lifted Jack up, pumped it into the empty kettle. No sooner had the giant's wife opened the door than her husband roared, "Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive, or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread." "Nonsense," said his wife. "You must be mistaken. It's the ox's hide you smell." So he sat down and ate up the greater part of the ox. When he had finished, he said, "Wife, bring me my money bags." So his wife brought him 2 full bags of gold, and the giant began to count his money. But he was so sleepy that his head soon began to nod. And then he began to snore, like the rumbling of thunder. Then Jack crept out, snatched the 2 bags, and though the giant's dog barked loudly, he made his way down the Beanstalk back to the cottage before the giant awoke. Jack and his mother were now quite rich, but it occurred to him one day that he would like to see how matters were going on at the giant's castle. So while his mother was away at the market, he climbed up and up and up and up until he got back up at the top of the Beanstalk. The giantess was standing at the door, just as before, but she did not know Jack, who, of course, was more finely dressed than on his first visit. "If you please, ma'am," he said, "will you give me some breakfast?" "Run away," she said, "or my husband will eat you up, bones and all. The last boy who came stole your 2 bags of gold off of you." But the giantess had a kind heart, and after a time she allowed Jack to come into the kitchen, where she set before him enough breakfast to last him a week. Scarcely he begun to eat, and there was a great rumbling, like an earthquake. The giantess had only time to bundle Jack into the oven when the giant came. No sooner was he inside the room than he roared, "Fee, fi, fo, smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread. But his wife told him that he was mistaken, and after breakfasting off a roasted bullock, just as if it were a lark, the called out, "Wife, bring the little brown hen." The giantess went out and brought in a little brown hen, which she placed on the table. "Lay," said the giant, and the hen at once laid a golden egg. "Lay," the giant second time, as she laid another golden egg. Said the giant. "Lay," said the giant in a third time, as she laid a third golden egg. "That will do for today," she said, and stretched himself out to go to sleep. As soon as he began to snore, Jack crept out of the oven, went on a tiptoe to the table, and, snatching up the little brown hen, made a dash for the door, and the hen began to cackle, and the giant began to wake up. But before he was quite awake, Jack had escaped from the castle, climbing as fast as he could down the beanstalk, got safe home to his mother's cottage. The little brown hen laid so many eggs that Jack and his mother now had more money than they could spend. But Jack was always thinking about the beanstalk, and one day he went out of the window again and climbed up and up and up until he reached the top. This time he made sure he was careful not to be seen. So he crept around the castle to the back, and when the giant's wife went out, he slipped into the kitchen and hid himself in the oven. In came the giant, roaring louder than ever. "Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread." But the giantess was quite sure that she had seen no boys that morning, and after grumbling a great deal, the giant sat down to breakfast. And then he was not quite satisfied, for every now and again he would say, "Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman." And once he got up and looked in the kettle. But of course, Jack was in the oven all the time. And when the giant had finished, he called out, "Wife, bring me the golden harp." So she brought out the golden harp and placed it on the table. "Sing," said the giant, and the harp at once began to sing the most beautiful songs that were ever heard. It sang so sweet, the giant soon fell asleep. Then Jack crept up out of the oven, and going on tiptoe up to the table, seized hold of the golden harp. But the harp once called out, "Master, master," and the giant woke up just in time to catch sight of Jack running out of the kitchen door. With a fearful roar, he seized his oak tree club and dashed after Jack, who held the harp tight and ran faster than he ever run before. The giant, brandishing his club and taking terrible long strides, gained on Jack at every instant, and he would have been caught if he had not slipped over a boulder. Before he could pick himself up, Jack began to climb down the beanstalk, and when the giant arrived at the edge, he was nearly on the way to the cottage. The giant began to climb down too, soon as Jack